Buckle up, guys. Today we're going to watch a courtroom moment that perfectly captures what happens when confidence collides with reality. In this clip, a sovereign citizen walks into court convinced that he has cracked the legal system with arguments about constitutional rights and the so-called right to travel. The judge, calm and composed at first, tries to give him the benefit of the doubt. But the moment he starts pushing those internet legal theories a little too far, the tone of the courtroom begins to change. You can already sense the tension building as patience slowly starts running out.
I'm relying on the constitutional rights. I'm not just out here willy-nilly.
You are out here willy-nilly because if you were following, no.
But I'm not a person. I'm a human being. I have no contract with the Secretary of State. I'm traveling. I'm not driving.
I don't have to explain anything. It's not my job to explain it.
But you said you did explain, but you didn't.
But I said I allowed you to explain it.
That's kind of irrelevant.
Okay.
All right, guys. Now the argument officially kicks off, and you can immediately see where this is heading. The defendant starts quoting Supreme Court cases and confidently claims they prove he doesn't need a driver's license to travel. On the surface, it sounds impressive, but the judge quickly realizes he's misinterpreting the law completely. She calmly explains that the case he's referencing is actually about welfare benefits and interstate residency, not traffic laws. Still, he keeps pushing the point as if he's uncovered some hidden loophole, setting up the classic clash between internet law theories and real courtroom procedure.
That a state cannot arbitrarily or erroneously convert a secure liberty, in this case, a secure right to travel, into a privilege, meaning we don't need license or insurance to travel throughout the land.
Okay, so this right to travel was about a welfare case, Mr. Williams, where she wanted to go to a different state, and they told her that because she didn't have established residency in that she was going to be denied services.
Right, and that violated her.
Right, because it's talking about services. She needed to take care of her child. She was 19 and she was pregnant.
But you avoiding the facts of the case. Even though that she filed a lawsuit against the state for denying her privileges, but the Supreme Court ruled that the Supreme Court ruled that can't happen because that also be violating her right to travel throughout the states, the land.
Receive the benefits that she needs in order to take care of herself and her child.
Yes, but you're missing the argument that the Supreme Court has stated. That'll be violating her First Amendment right, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, travel. I don't want you to miss that fact. That's what they ruled.
They said the closest the Supreme Court has come to overturning Shapiro Thomas was in 1995 with Anderson versus Green, California Welfare and Interstate Code annotated section instituted a 1-year residency requirement for welfare aid, violating Shapiro versus Thompson. Both lower courts in California affirmed that violated Shapiro versus Thompson and granted the injunction. I'm sorry. Due to the procedural issue, California's residency requirement never went into effect, creating no justifiable controversy action and no actual issuance for the court to rule on.
Now things start getting more intense as the defendant doubles down on his interpretation of the law. He keeps pulling lines from different cases, trying to stitch them together into an argument that supports his right to drive without a license. The judge, clearly experienced with this type of reasoning, patiently breaks down the real meaning of those rulings. She explains that the right to travel does not eliminate a state's ability to regulate driving. What makes this moment interesting is the contrast between his growing confidence and the judge's steady effort to bring the discussion back to actual legal reality.
Whether they receive a waiver from the Secretary of Health or Human Services to set aside Shapiro versus Thompson, making the residency requirement pseudo-legal, the waiver was challenged again, and it's holding that the state court and the Secretary of HHS had not adequately considered public comment on the issues. This is about welfare. Yeah, no. This is about the welfare system and the ability for people. You cannot stop people from traveling. I don't see anything in here about a driver's license.
Look, the decision of the court.
Right, she has the right to go places.
Look, the court reaffirmed the right to travel under the 14th Amendment Privilege and Immunities Clause in Suez versus Roe. So they conferred it to another
Right.
case. But
Right.
the conclusion of the case, like that, would be violating her right to travel. It have something to do with the welfare, but it's violating her right to travel.
It's all about that.
Right
because the reason why we can't prohibit her from being able to travel or to go to another state is because then they're saying once she gets to that state, she has to establish some type of residency. And what they're saying is that if she doesn't have that residency, she wouldn't get the services needed. And so they're saying you can't say, oh, you can't go to this state and not get the stuff that you need to take care of yourself and your family just because you're not. I can't stop her. I can't say you can't move to this state and then we're gonna block everything. I can't do that. Right. This is not about a license.
Which will violate the right to travel.
No,
that was the decision of the court.
At this point, you can feel the courtroom dynamic shifting. The judge is still composed, but her patience is starting to thin as the same argument keeps circling back. She makes it very clear that the case he keeps referencing has absolutely nothing to do with driver's licenses or traffic enforcement. It's about access to welfare services for people moving between states. Yet despite the explanation, he continues insisting that it somehow proves his point. Watching this moment unfold, you can practically hear the judge wondering how the conversation keeps returning to the same misunderstanding.
But you're not understanding what their decision was based on. Yes, you have the right to travel, but this is concerning services.
So if I chose to carry a weapon, I will be bearing arms.
If you chose to carry a weapon in the state of in Illinois, that's an automatic. You're not allowed to carry weapons at all in the state of Illinois unless you're a law enforcement officer. So if you traveled over the state lines and you went to Illinois and you tried to carry a gun, they would tell you no.
But that's irrelevant, Your Honor. We're talking about the state of Michigan. I have a right to bear arms, but you will call it receiving
exactly.
But the Constitution of Michigan states that I can bear arms, but
because once again, and we had this conversation already, the states can make stuff more, the localities can make stuff, they can, and it's a state law anyways, but they can be harsher than the U.S. Constitution, but they can do something that would take away from the U.S. Constitution. So they're not taking away your right to bear arms. They're just putting parameters around that right.
That's kind of irrelevant.
Okay.
And like Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, say no state can convert a secure liberty into a privilege. Our secure liberty, First Amendment, is the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Right to travel throughout the United States of America. I'm relying on the constitutional rights. I'm not just out here willfully nilly, like United States versus Bishop.
But you are, because you're only taking the part that you want to be applied to you. So you are out here willy-nilly. Because if you were following, if you were following everything, you would want to follow everything and all the rules that were put into place. So all that
I'm following laws, not
following what you want to follow. And that's no. We talked about how that leads to anarchy. People can't do whatever they want to do. They say that I can follow only this. That's like me coming one day and saying I want to practice law and I want to be a judge, and I haven't gone through any of the things to become a judge. That's not how it works.
I see how you put it.
I can't sit up there with a fake P number. They wouldn't let me do that.
I see how you put it, but that's not true. What about Title 18 USC Section 241?
Mr. Williams, do you want a trial on Monday or not? You can't argue this stuff to the jury.
I want to go to trial, but I can't.
Okay. You can't argue this stuff to the jury. You can argue that maybe something, making sure that they didn't check the things. Like you have to follow the law. I have to treat you as an attorney in that place on Monday. So I have to treat that you know how to practice and go about the way of law. And these different things, like you can't just give the jury.
All right, guys. Now the judge tries a different strategy to explain the issue. She brings up another constitutional example, comparing it to the right to bear arms, showing how states can place reasonable limits on constitutional rights. Her point is simple. Having a right does not mean there are no rules around exercising it. But instead of recognizing the analogy, the defendant pushes back again, insisting the argument doesn't apply to him. This is where the conversation really starts revealing the core problem. He's not looking for clarification. He's looking for confirmation of a belief he already refuses to question.
Cases and stuff like that. That's not what it's going to be about. And you'll most likely end up with objections that I'll have to sustain because it's going to be talking about the facts of these particular cases where the officers came today. Attorney Mason will make the argument for, and officers came to testify about.
What are they testifying about?
About these different stops.
Which is unlawful.
Different tickets. Okay. Well, I gave you plenty of time to write a motion about unlawful, and you did not want to.
So now we're here. I gave you affidavits stating the facts, what you needed, and
exactly. And the facts are to be argued before a jury. If they differ from these facts that on the tickets, we're here to talk about these tickets. I've already made my ruling long ago that they had the right to stop.
Now the judge decided to address the bigger issue directly. She points out that you can't simply pick and choose which parts of the law apply to you while ignoring the rest. Her explanation becomes less about traffic law and more about how society functions under a legal system. If everyone decided to follow only the rules they personally agreed with, the entire structure would collapse into chaos. It's a powerful moment because it cuts straight through the legal jargon and exposes a flaw in the argument. Laws don't operate on personal preference.
And that these tickets are the tickets for which they wrote them for.
Yes, they have a right to stop persons, but I'm not a person. I'm a human being. I have no contract with the Secretary of State. I'm traveling. I'm not driving. I'm not driving for gain or profit. I'm going to point A to point B, not violating nobody's rights. I'm just traveling freely, like I exercise my constitutional rights. Like Title 18 USC, Section 241. Can you look that up?
We talked about, I let you have a whole hour of time to discuss all of these previously, Mr. Williams. We talked about all of these, and at the end, I made the ruling that the court did have jurisdiction and that the officers could write tickets.
You haven't explained jurisdiction.
I don't have to explain anything. It's not my job to explain it.
But you said you didn't explain, but you didn't.
But I said I allowed you to explain it. Do you need to put it up on YouTube?
But the burden is on the prosecutor.
Right, not on me. I'm the court. I just call laws and strikes.
And the prosecutor cannot state how she has jurisdiction.
Okay, Attorney Mason, do you want to state how you have jurisdiction over these matters?
Statute provides us with the jurisdiction over this matter. The statutes and the laws of the court provide us the jurisdiction over these matters.
That's subject.
I am empowered by the state. I am empowered by my bar card, which has been submitted to the state of Michigan. I'm empowered by the city of Detroit.
But she's still not stating. I got to object to that because she's not stating how she has jurisdiction over.
She's telling you it's by the statutes. The statutes that were given.
Statutes is not law.
Okay.
I'm obeying by the law.
So you want us to call them laws? Laws are statutes. They're the same thing. It's just a fancy way of saying laws. Statutes are just a fancy way of saying laws.
Statutes are persuasive. Laws are mandatory.
These are laws. Okay, statutes are laws. That's just a fancy way of saying laws.
Yeah, they derive from the law.
At this point, Your Honor, I'm going to
rules and regulations.
I'm going to just make a motion that these matters have already been resolved. That the court has previously stated that the trial was set forth regarding the facts of the incidents that have arisen, and that the witnesses will testify only to the facts regarding the tickets.
What are the facts?
All right, guys. The conversation now shifts toward what's about to happen next in this case. The judge starts explaining the upcoming jury trial and makes something crystal clear. None of these sovereign citizen theories are going to be presented to the jury. The trial will focus strictly on the facts of the traffic stop and the tickets involved. You can tell she's trying to manage expectations before things go any further. For the defendant, though, this is probably the moment where reality should start setting in, because the courtroom isn't interested in internet arguments. It deals in evidence and law.
The facts are the things on the ticket. So you have to research the law and find out exactly what each one is to show.
According to Michigan Vehicle Code 257-744A, police officers knowingly.
Okay.
I travel with a passport. My ID been canceled since 2018, so none of that is true.
Just because you cancel your ID, and this is the last argument for today, and then we're just gonna have trial on Monday. Just because you cancel your ID doesn't mean now you have the right to drive in the state of Michigan. That's not the law of this state. When you avail yourselves of the roads, the lights, the streets, the anything, once you avail, once you take part on those items, then you automatically allow yourself to avail yourself to any laws that are being taken place, any statutes that are being taken place, any codes that are taking place. All of those now become active, whether you want them to or not.
Now we arrive at the final stretch of this exchange, and the defendant delivers the full sovereign citizen playbook. He insists he isn't a person, claims he's merely traveling rather than driving, and argues that statutes somehow aren't real laws. The judge, clearly done entertaining the circular arguments, shuts it down with a straightforward explanation. The moment you choose to use public roads, you automatically fall under the laws that govern them. It's a firm and logical conclusion to the discussion, and you can almost feel the courtroom settling as the judge finally draws a line on the debate.